Hey guys, I'm Jordy, and this is your guide to the highest heat level of Molten Core on Season of Discovery. Now, we just cleared this earlier today, so I wanted to get this video to you as soon as possible so that you could have it before you stepped into MC. But just know, some things will change as Blizzard tunes the raid, fixes any bugs, and adjusts class DPS, so keep that in mind. Okay, so top line here, on Heat 3 or Molten, there's a new mechanic called Conflagration that will one-shot you if you take any fire damage and happen to have less than 226 fire resistance. This is unavoidable, so make sure that you've packed your bags and are ready to beat the heat. We also cleared nearly all the bosses in here without world buffs with no issue, so don't feel like they're required, but they definitely help. Now, if you're looking for a strategy for the new Season of Discovery only boss, you can scrub to it toward the end of the guide below. Okay, so the trash for MC isn't anything to write home about, just clear as you normally would down to Lucifron, where you'll meet your lizard friend in his usual place. Lucy has 3 adds now, but that doesn't really matter. Just have an off tank or 2 pick them up and tank them off to one side of the room, while your main tank tanks Lucy and blasts him down, ignoring the adds. We tried killing them first, but it turns out unless you kill them all at the same time, they res and heal each other, so just skip them and take Lucifron out. Additionally, he casts a few things that you're going to need to handle. Mind control, so make sure you dispel those people super fast. There's a macro here I'll put on the screen, and this will cover your dispels and leave you targeting whatever you just were. Handy and will clean your raid fast. Additionally, there's a curse that doubles the cost of all your raiders' abilities, so assign a mage or druid here to decurse it. It can really hinder your abilities and it needs to be cleaned quick. Critically, Lucifron will blanket the raid in a magic debuff called Impending Doom, dealing a bunch of shadow damage after 10 seconds. Just make sure you cleanse everyone of this or they will take a bunch of damage. And that's it for Lucy. We're moving on to Magmadar now, who's not too bad. You do want 2 hunters with Trank Shot here because he'll cast Frenzy a bit quicker than the Trank cooldown is, but it's not too spooky if you just have 1, so no stress there. Every so often he'll cast Fear, so make sure you have Fear Wards on your tank and Tremor Totems out if you are Horde. And watch out for the fire that he puts on the ground as you're running around. He'll also cast Lava Breath, which is a cone, just face him away from the raid. He'll pick a player and cast Conflagration on them, which causes them to lose control of their character briefly. Just keep them topped off and make sure there's no fire underneath them. Finally, he'll periodically summon some extra dogs, so have an off tank or 2 if you have them to pick them up and tank them off to the side. They're not too threatening, and I recommend you just burn the boss and ignore them. Okay, Magmadar goes down. Don't forget to douse your rune, and on to Gehennas. Now, Gehennas is all about the pull here, so have a couple of off tanks, even 1 will do, FAP with the tank on pull and grab the adds while the raid starts in on the boss. You'll want to take them off to the side here while the raid blasts Gehennas, moving every so often out of the rain of fire. Gehennas also will periodically blanket the raid in a 100% healing reduction curse that needs to be immediately cleansed on your tanks and the raid if you can manage. It's not too bad, just make sure those adds stay away from the raid because they do an AoE stun that will really hurt you if you're stuck taking it. Okay, Gehennas down, onto Garr. Now, a lot of people have been having trouble with Garr, but we figured out a surefire way to handle it. First, you're going to notice Garr only has 4 adds, down from 8, but they're a bit more threatening than they used to be. They also can only be banished once, then they become immune, so you're going to need to find a different way to handle them. We use 2 off tanks, 1 on 3 of the adds and 1 on the kill target, and then your main tank on the boss. Have your 3 add tank use a big tank cooldowns to survive the 3 adds while you quickly kill the 1 off to the side. Then have your kill target tank taunt and drag out the new kill target. Do this a couple times and boom, the adds will go down. Remember, they do blow up as they die, so melee definitely move away from them and get started on the next kill target while the ranged finish the last one off. Ranged need to spread out as the small add Garr will occasionally spawn, called Magmakin, will target a random player and rush toward them before exploding and knocking back anyone nearby. Okay, we finish Garr up and then move on to Baron Geddon. Now, Geddon's been hitting the gym lately and his mechanics are a bit deadlier than we remember. I recommend you pull him all the way back from his room into Garr's room because you'll want the extra room for activities. Living Bomb now targets 3 players instead of just 1, and when that player blows up, they're going to leave behind a patch of burnt ground that deals damage to anyone standing in it. Additionally, the Inferno that he'll do every 25 seconds or so will also leave that same burnt ground. So the name of the game is moving him around the room to patches of ground that aren't already burnt, dropping that damage, and then moving him into a free area. Additionally, he'll cast Ignite Mana on the raid, so make sure to cleanse that from mana users as it can really sap their effectiveness. Finally, at 10%, he'll cast Armageddon, blasting anyone nearby with a huge amount of fire damage after 15 seconds, so finish him off quick before your melee all die. Okay, Geddon goes down, good luck on your binding, and we move on to our third of 4 lizards, Shazzrah. This fight you actually don't need fire resist gear for, wow! Instead, you can pre-pop arcane resist pots as they'll help mitigate some of that damage. Shazzrah is a really tough fight as a caster. I'm sorry. He will periodically put up a magic reflection debuff that reflects magic back to the user, which is nearly impossible to remove outside of a warrior's shield slam, so just watch it, guys, as you attack him. He'll also cast Shazzrah's Curse on the raid that doubles the magic damage taken unless dispelled, which can be super deadly because of his next move, Arcane Explosion. Every so often, he'll cast it around himself and then periodically blink to a random player in the raid, leaving behind a stationary mirror image that will spam Arcane Explosion where he just was a second ago, while also himself casting it where he appeared. The tank needs to pick him up and move him away from any of those images to avoid the extra arcane damage. Move him around the room, trying not to get caught in a corner, dispel those curses, and GG Shazzrah. Now we clear up this big embankment and meet our final lizard friend, and in my opinion, the easiest, Sulfuron Harbinger and his 4 buddies. You want to tank on 2 of each of these, assigning interrupts 2 apiece to these guys as they cast heal pretty quickly, and we're looking to avoid them getting it off. All these guys share a health pool, so it doesn't totally matter who you attack, but I have seen some groups stacking and cleaving. Whatever you do, just watch those heals. Sulfuron will occasionally inspire one of those adds, increasing their damage and attack speed, but it isn't too threatening. They fall over pretty quick. Okay, onto the big molten giant, Golemagg. Golemagg isn't too bad. Have an off tank on each of the dogs and your main tank on Golemagg. He'll start stacking up an armor reduction debuff on your tank, so have one of the off tanks grab him and swap with the main tank. His HP isn't too high, so it shouldn't be a big deal. He also throws boulders everywhere, just avoid them. They're not too threatening. Down he'll go. Okay, we're almost done. Time to force Majordomo to summon Ragnaros for us. Make sure you've doused each rune and then muster up in front of our guy. We mark each ad, assigning a tank to a few each and maybe a sheep or trap on 1 or 2 to help mitigate some of the damage. You can kill in any order, really. We started with an elite, then the healers, then the other elites. The healers do cast Dark Mending, so make sure you interrupt. Watch out for the elite's Fireball Volley and Blast Wave. Interrupt that volley if you can. He's not too bad, just keep your cool and don't overthreat your tanks. There's also this red damage orb that he casts on a player. As far as we can tell, you just soak it with other players to share the damage from it. It honestly hit like a wet noodle, so we didn't worry too much about it. Okay, now we're on to the big man himself, Ragnaros the Firelord, still firmly submerged in lava.
You have awakened me too soon, Executus.
Ragnaros is the same guy that you remember. You'll want 2 tanks with max fire resistance, tank swapping whenever there's a knockback, as this will cause him to pick the next target on the threat table, and spread out to avoid getting AoE fire blasted, the range DPS. Melee, good luck. This is kind of a spicy fight. I'd recommend you wear as much fire resist as you can. At 50%, he'll submerge and summon a bunch of Sons of Flame. DPS, don't hit these until the tank picks them up and drag them into a stack so you can AoE them down. Now watch out, when they die, they will suck everyone within a medium range onto their fresh corpse, where they've left a neat little pile of burnt ground, doing damage to anyone within it. So ranged, stay firmly away from them, and melee, be careful to move as soon as you get sucked in. Finish these off, then Rag will re-emerge and you continue blasting him, watching your threat as it has reset now. Keep hitting him, and if everything's gone to plan, you won't run into a second submerge and he'll go down. And now we're greeted by a crowd of water elementals, and we talk to Duke Hydraxis, who will summon the biggest meatball you or I have ever seen.
Starting. Yeah, fuck them.
Whoa, what's happening?
Is this the Molten Core
Oh
itself?
my god! It's a meatball!
A Molten Core.
Hey, kill the meatball.
Jayu's dead! Meet the Molten Core itself, a swirling manifestation of the instance ready to take you out unless you can quench its fiery depths with water elemental streams, I guess? Okay, so Molten Core is more of an ad fight than it is a race to kill it. You'll notice it's got an energy bar, not a mana bar. This counts up to 1,000, and at 1,000, it explodes, killing everyone in the raid after a short amount of time. You need to keep our friendly water elementals alive and quenching him from the fire elementals that spawn in the room, while also DPSing the core to 0. If the elementals die and it reaches full energy, say goodbye to your friends. Alright, so there's a few elementals in the room. We assigned the melee DPS to what we're going to call the front of the boss, between here and here, and the range DPS on the back, covering the other ones. If they see an elemental heading to any of our good water friends, their first priority is to take them out so that they can survive and quell the flames of the Molten Core. Note these mobs will only really focus the elementals, but they can be taunted, feared, or stunned, which will temporarily distract them from their purpose, so use these to slow their advance if you need to. Okay, so that's the elementals. What else is going on? Periodically, he'll cast Heart of Ash and Heart of Cinder on 2 friendly players. They will deal damage to anyone in their close proximity until the 2 players with these debuffs meet up and touch, cleansing them of their debuffs and allowing them to go back into the raid. We were wearing a good chunk of fire resist, so we opted to jump into the center of the lava swirl if you got the debuff, a nice central point that everyone could remember even if they got turned around. This is not too bad, but it is very critical to get correct. Finally, there's meteors, starting with 1 at a time and increasing in count as the fight goes on. The Molten Core will pick a player, and a meteor will fall from above and slowly descend before landing on where that player was standing. Then that meteor will be embedded in the floor before exploding, dealing a bunch of damage to anybody within range. You need to avoid these. They really, really hurt, and this extra damage cannot be afforded on your raid. We start in 1 stack, call a meteor is coming, and then move as a group to avoid it. Just make sure no one's standing close by as they pop, and then move back into position. So long as you kept the elementals alive for a good chunk of time and the boss's HP is lowish, at some point you should make a call to just zerg it and ignore the elementals. Finish it off, even if the heat is quickly rising, and finally douse the core itself. Congratulations. And that's it for Molten Core in Season of Discovery. There's a lot of cool new cosmetic enhancements to some of the loot in here, so good luck on those. If you enjoyed this guide, do me a huge favor and like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be putting out a ton of Season of Discovery content in the weeks and months to come, including some lesser known tips for MC that will help you clean the raid up, as well as a bunch of Cataclysm stuff as we fight Ragnaros again in the far future, this time with legs. All right, that's it for me. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Too soon!
Once you're done jumping through lava, use
Yep. Hit it. PP.
but don't.
This is definitely a max FR fight, by the way.
GFPP.